With more than 100 years of experience, Mitas is one of Europe's leading motorcycle tyre brands. Whether you ride on the trails, enduro, on the road or on adventures, Mitas have the tyres for you. If they're good enough for the likes of Chris Birch and Paul Tarris, they're good enough for me and our Noel. For more information, go to mitas-moto.com. Go the distance with Mitas tyres.
Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
Hello all, today we've got a special episode for you. It's been produced and edited by Simon Josie at Real Riders. Endometriosis UK is the UK's leading charity for all those affected by endometriosis and is focused on ensuring the sufferers of the disease get prompt diagnosis and the best treatment and support. Endo Riders is the brainchild of keen riders Kim, known on the socials as Street Twin Kim, and Jade, known as Jade Rides. This spring, they've organised a motorcycling event to raise funds for Endometriosis UK. During the weekend of the 4th and the 5th of April, they'll be hosting a group of women riders taking on the 10 highest passes in Wales. In this episode, we'll hear both Kim and Jade tell us how they got into motorcycling and hear about their struggles with endometriosis. In addition, Faye Farthing from Endometriosis UK is here to tell us more about the disease and the work of the charity.
If you follow me on Instagram or any other social media, then you'll probably know me as Street Twin Kim, and I'm based in the southwest of the UK. I'm a keen motorcyclist and I also suffer from endometriosis. I grew up in a completely motorcycle mad family. My dad has always ridden motorcycles. I think he got his first bike when he was about 16, back when you could ride around the block. Someone would jump out in front of you and that'd be that. You had your licence. It's all I've ever known. My mum and dad were very big fans of the Isle of Man TT. So they would go every year. I think they've been over 15 times. I grew up in the 90s when sports bikes were big. So I just remember multiple bikes in and out the garage. He had GSXR slingshots and slab sides, and he had VFR 400, Ducatis, and we sat down one day and looked through his photograph collection, and we think he's probably had over 50 bikes in total. So many bikes. Sometimes he would go out for the day on one bike and he'd come back on another one, and he would hope my mum would not notice the fact that it was a completely different colour, completely different model, sounded completely different, but she did. So I was always interested in that. I would watch my dad tinkering, watch the TT with him, and then I turned 17. I was a skint student. I couldn't really afford to get a car, and I really wanted a motorbike, which my mum was quite alarmed about. I think she expected my brother to be the one who was into motorbikes, but he's into cars, he's a mechanic. But she couldn't really say no, because how can you say no when it's all I've ever watched my dad do? So they said, yes, you can do your CBT, you can buy a motorbike, but only if you wear the full gear and you go out with your dad a few times first. So I did my CBT on a crappy little 50cc scooter because I was too scared to ride a geared bike. Soon discovered that was horrendous. You'd get to a hill and just open the throttle and you'd stop. But somehow I managed to get through it. And then my dad taught me how to ride a geared bike. So we bought me a little SR 125 Yamaha. And yeah, we started going out together. Where I lived in Cornwall was when I grew up. We had the moors really close by, so we spent a lot of time riding around the moors whilst I got used to it. And then I kept that bike for about 5 years. Rode it every day, all year round, in snow, in hail, in rain. Would get to work and my hands would be so cold I wouldn't be able to take my helmet off, but I loved it. And I couldn't see any other way of getting around. And then I stopped riding for about 10 years. I sold it when I went to do my car licence. because I couldn't afford to have both, and I needed a car at that point. So got my car license, bought a car, and would spend every summer looking out the window and seeing people riding past on bikes, or hearing somebody ride past and thinking, oh, I really wish I was on a bike again. My dad also took a little bit of a break from riding. And then when I was in my early 30s, after having surgery for my endometriosis, I thought, I don't want to wait any longer. I've spent enough time putting it off and not feeling up to doing things like that. So I went and got my license, did my direct access, did that on a KTM 790, which I was terrified of. So the school where I live, they use KTMs. I don't know if they still do. They might have changed that now. And I said, no, put me on the 390. I don't want to ride the 790. I'm fine. I'll do my A2. I'll be fine. I won't need anything bigger than that. And they were brilliant. They said, well, the 390 is not coming out today, so you either get on the 790 or we'll just cancel your course, because we're not letting you worry that much. You'll be able to do it. So I jumped on it. Every time they watched me, I went to bits, and they said to me, Can we not watch you do your test? You can ride, but if we look at you, you freak out. So they were brilliant. So I did a 2 or 3 day course, and managed to pass, and have been making up for lost time ever since, I guess.
My name's Faye Farthing, and I am Head of Campaigns and Communications at Endometriosis UK. So my role's all about sharing people with lived experience stories with the media and pushing for change with governments. Endometriosis is a condition where cells similar to those in the lining of the womb are found elsewhere in the body. It can cause a range of symptoms. It's a disease that affects everybody very differently. So for some, symptoms may be minimal, whereas for others, it can be completely debilitating. The most common symptoms include heavy menstrual bleeding, pelvic pain, heavy periods that interfere with everyday life, painful sex, and it can also cause infertility as well. It's a condition that is really misunderstood. People often think it's just a bad period, but it's so much more than this, and it's a disease that can affect every aspect of someone's life. Endometriosis impacts approximately 1 in 10 women, and those assigned female at birth in the UK. It can start as early as puberty, so we know girls can start their period as early as 7 now, and endometriosis symptoms can start as early as the onset of puberty, and the impacts can be felt for life. So there is a myth that endometriosis, once you go through the menopause, that your symptoms will clear, but that's not actually the case. This is a disease that can impact people for their entire life. And we also shouldn't underestimate the impact that it can have on loved ones as well, and supporting somebody through their endometriosis as well. So this is a disease that can impact loved ones, parents of young people with endometriosis who might not be able to support or know how to support their child through the symptoms that they're experiencing, partners, friends, employers, teachers. It really is a disease that could impact everybody.
I'm Jade, also known as Jade Rides online. I started motorcycling nearly 7 years ago now, so I've been putting stuff out on Instagram from about 7 years ago, and I've just rolled with it since then, and recently gone into the YouTube space as well. My partner was planning a round-the-world trip similar to Long Way Round, and we'd only been together a couple of weeks, and I broke my pelvis falling off a horse, his mum's horse actually. And so I ended up moving in with him and his mum like very early on in the relationship, and he was planning this trip, and I got really attached, and I said to him, I want to go with you. And he laughed and said, no, you're not going on the back of the bike, not a chance. You'll have to learn, you'll have to get your own bike. And I said, okay, I will, so I can do this trip. and we went and bought a Van 125, and he taught me how to ride, and within a couple of months I'd already gone and done the North Coast 500 and just got the bug for it and decided I'll get my A2 licence before. I didn't want to wait until getting the A licence. I wasn't old enough, so I was like, I'm just going to get the A2 licence. And then I did more travelling and eventually did my own trip, and he's done his own trips, and we never did the long way round route that was originally planned for. I've got another Van 125 because I loved my first bike so much, and it's just a perfect little bike for commuting on and nip into the shops on. And then I've got a Suzuki V-Strom 1000, which is my big touring sort of bike, but I've not actually toured on it yet. I've got a lot of ideas of where I want to ride, but not a big trip again. I did 5 months to Georgia and back on my own on a Yamaha WR250R back in 2022. But I don't see that I would have the money or the time off to be able to do that again. So ideally I'd like to go to Vietnam and ride around there for a while. I want to go over to America. I've got quite a lot of places I want to go to, but nothing on the horizon this year with health issues, and we now have a house and a mortgage and 5 dogs, so everything's expensive.
I think there's a number of reasons why diagnosis takes so long. I think a real pertinent issue is education for healthcare practitioners. So it's not mandatory to be taught effective menstrual health education at medical school. And how can future doctors know how to support people experiencing symptoms if they aren't taught about it themselves? So that's one of our key campaign messages, that we want every healthcare practitioner. That's not just GPs, it's gynecologists, pharmacists, nurses, A&E doctors. Any healthcare practitioner should be able to support someone who's experiencing symptoms of endometriosis so they can put them on the right pathway to care. Another reason is a lack of research. So the only definitive way to diagnose endometriosis is through surgery. There is real improvement in ultrasound and MRI imaging so that some types of endometriosis can now be picked up on a scan, but a negative scan doesn't mean that you don't have endometriosis, and those scans aren't picking up every type of endometriosis. So there's real issues in terms of research and access to a diagnosis, because there are no non-invasive diagnostic tools that can definitively diagnose every type of endometriosis. I also think there's a real awareness problem, which leads me back to the issue around school education, and that being so important for every school child to leave school knowing the signs and symptoms of a menstrual health condition. Because again, if you're not taught at school, how can you possibly know that what you're experiencing isn't normal, particularly when there's such a narrative around painful periods are normal, particularly amongst young people? That can be a real myth. If you've just started your periods, there's very much a narrative around, oh, it will calm down. And for some, yes, it will, but it won't for everybody. So it's so important that young people can advocate for themselves, go to their GP. Their GPs also has that education if our campaign wins and gets to the right places. And then people can hopefully improve their access to diagnosis.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Today's exciting episode is brought to you by Adventure Specs Super Shirt 2.0. 2.0? Yep, it's a new version. It's got the Flow Armour, which is a lot more breathable, and yet it's still CE AA rated. So it gives you both impact protection and abrasion resistance.
It's an absolute game changer.
It is actually, because you completely forget you've got it on. The armour's really soft. I even find myself checking to see if I've actually remembered to put it on sometimes.
It still feels wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But it's the first thing I put on for all motorcycling activities, basically. I even wore it and you mocked me when we were doing some trials practice.
Thank God you were wearing it that day, because I don't think you'd be with us today if you hadn't been wearing it when you got on the trials bike.
It wasn't that bad. It's even been crash tested on an actual human, which I don't think any other garment has ever been tested that way.
They threw a man down a runway wearing one, didn't they?
It's actually quite scary to watch, but
he came away unscathed, which is pretty good news.
What do you wear over the top of yours?
Well, you know I'm a bit of a hipster, so it's usually a check shirt and a very long beard.
Just something to hide the coffee stains.
Yes, the very rare blend espressos that I normally drink.
Nice.
So there are sizes for all from small to, I think, triple XL. It's quite stretchy as well, so it'll fit women and it fits fatties like me too.
To get your super shirt, head to adventurespec.com.
I'm Austin Vince, and in 1995, me and some buddies set out to motorcycle around the world on a trip we called Mondo Enduro. We thought it would be terribly difficult, but it turned out it wasn't. Ultimately, we were the first group to trail ride across Siberia's Zilov Gap, and then also the first crew to ride the Road of Bones to Magadan. And we did it on second-hand 350cc trail bikes without the internet, mobile phones, or GPS. Motorcycling around the world was the defining experience of my life, and I knew I wanted to share that fun. So now I teach the DIY lo-fi Mondo ethos by taking people on miniature expeditions in the Spanish Pyrenees. If you think that sounds like fun, you'd be right. So come on.
You can find lots more information at austinvince.com.
Unfortunately, endometriosis has been a big part of my life for a significantly long period. So I was quite a happy-go-lucky kid, quite chilled, nothing really bothered me. And then when I turned 11 and had an evening where I was very unwell, and my parents thought I had appendicitis, were ready to take me to hospital. And turns out I'd just started my period. And that was that. So from then onwards, I spent most months being quite unwell, taking time off school. I'd be sick or I'd pass out, which is very difficult to explain to somebody when you might be in the middle of the street or you might be in the middle of a lesson and suddenly you're profusely vomiting and they say, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" If you say you're on your period, they kind of look at you like, "What are you on about?" That's just something everybody goes through. And that continued for about 20 years of going back and forth to the doctors. My mum coming with me, saying to them, "Look, I'm really sure something's not right. This isn't normal. That Kim can't function on a monthly basis. She's fine for 3 weeks in the month, and for a week of every month, you could pretty much write off that week. She can't do anything." And they would always say, "Oh, she'll grow out of it. It's just things settling down." And I just didn't. So I spent a lot of time in and out being put onto hormone treatments or even antidepressants because they said, "Oh, you're just an anxious child." And in the end, I saw a doctor who listened. So when I was 31, I went in and said, "Look, I cannot continue like this." At this point, I'd been qualified as a veterinary nurse for a few years and it was starting to affect my job because if you're in the middle of a surgery and you're scrubbed in, or if you're in the middle of a consult, it's very inconvenient if you suddenly have to say, "Sorry, I'm going to have to step out," or you faint. So I had to really lay it on thick and say, "Look, this is affecting my life in every way you can possibly imagine now. You need to do something." So they finally referred me to have a laparoscopy, so keyhole surgery, to have a look around and see what was going on. But at that point, the waiting list for that was still 2 years, which is madness. So we'd saved up a little bit of money, which we were going to use to move house. And we used that for me to have a private laparoscopy, which we were in the very privileged position to be able to do. But a lot of people can't. So I went and had my laparoscopy and had it confirmed that I had endometriosis. And I cried with relief, which is a very warped way to feel when you've just been told you've got a chronic health condition. But I'd spent 20 years being told there was nothing wrong with me. And I hate the term gaslighting. I just think it's a strange term, but it was gaslighting of there's nothing wrong with you. You just need to put up with it. Are you sure it's not all in your head? And that's what happened. So to have that confirmation that I wasn't going mad was massive.
Treatment options, unfortunately, are really limited for endometriosis, which is the reason why at Endometriosis UK, we're campaigning for more investment in research. The most common treatment options include contraceptive pills, the coil, surgery as well, and also some therapeutic options as well might help people, such as pelvic physiotherapy. Acupuncture can help some people as well, but these aren't always offered on the NHS, which is another part of the issue, is that treatment options need to be readily available for people with the condition as well.
So from about age 11, I was really, really ill. Every month I was being wheelchaired out of school, passing out, throwing up. I was just just in a really bad place every few weeks, and just thought it was normal. And then a couple of years ago, during the summer holidays, because I'm a teacher, I was off, I just had this really bad pain that I couldn't eat, drink, move for about a week. I was in really, really bad pain. So I went to hospital and they said I had endometriosis. So it took from age 11 to age 28 to actually get a name for it. And I had a surgery a year and a week ago. It was a hard surgery, really took a lot on my body, and I've been in pain ever since the surgery. Now having a really bad flare-up with it, so I've got to go back to the hospital for more scans. It's just been a bit of a roller coaster. Now I've got a name to it, and now I know I have endometriosis. I'm doing so much research and every day looking at clinical trials and seeing if there's anything I can do. And I've changed a lot of my lifestyle. I don't drink, I don't have gluten anymore, just doing everything I possibly can, taking all the supplements. It's really changed my life, not just in the pain and in the surgery, but in how I am living now as well.
Endometriosis UK has been around for around 40 years, and it was originally set up by a group of women who had lived experience of endometriosis, and they wanted to come together to form a support group. So they wanted to support each other through their experiences with endometriosis, and that ethos still very much lives on today. So we now have over 100 support groups across the UK in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. We run a helpline, and we have a peer support line run by volunteers with lived experience. We also have a nurse-led helpline, which is run by a team of specialist endometriosis nurses, which is a service which is so desperately needed when gynecology waiting times are so incredibly high. This is a service that is so needed by our community. We also campaign for change. So very much at the heart of our organisation is wanting to campaign for real change for people affected by endometriosis. Diagnosis times are not improving. So it currently takes on average nearly 9 years to get a diagnosis of endometriosis, which is shocking. And that hasn't changed in over a decade. And in fact, times are getting worse, not better. So we very much lobby governments across the UK to demand change so that people have better access to care, quicker diagnosis, and have support in every area of their life. That might be at school. We know that people are really struggling at school if they don't know what they're experiencing isn't normal. So it's absolutely vital that at school people are receiving an education about menstrual health so they feel empowered to seek help and know when they're experiencing symptoms that could be signs of endometriosis or another menstrual health problem. We also campaign for better provisions in the workplace. So we know that a lot of people get a very unfair deal at work and when they're suffering from endometriosis. So we run an endometriosis-friendly employer scheme that employers can sign up to. So we work directly with employers to inform them how they can better support their employees. But we're also campaigning for that to be delivered by the government as well, so that statutory support for people with endometriosis is very much there, so nobody faces unfair practices in the workplace. So we do a lot of campaigning work, we offer a lot of different support services, and we really want to see change for everybody in our community so that everybody can thrive with their endometriosis rather than struggling at every different point.
My first doctor I saw when I was a late teenager just told me to drink some wine to help the pain. And I don't even think I was 18 at this point. She said, try drinking wine. And I said, well, I don't drink. And she said, oh, just have a glass, it will help. And I was just fobbed off. And then at university, I saw the doctor. They said I had a funny appendix. So I never got anywhere with that. And then my mum had endometriosis and she had surgery when she was 26, I think. She told me when I was a teenager, oh, I'm so sorry, you've probably got endometriosis like I had. But that was it. No medical professional ever said it. And I was a kid. I didn't diagnose myself or pester for a diagnosis. I just thought, oh, well, I guess I have to deal with this. It wasn't until that pain 2 summers ago where I thought something really bad's happening. And yeah, when I had the surgery, they said it was really bad. It couldn't have been much worse without spreading to lungs, heart, or anywhere else that it could do.
Then, because I'd had the surgery to remove the tissue that they found, I improved significantly. I could start doing more. I felt like I could plan things again. And yeah, I think that's when I really threw myself into the motorcycling as well. So that was kind of just after COVID. So 2021, where we'd had a year of not really being able to doing anything and people being furloughed and a lot of time being able to think about what you really want to do. And that's when I went and got my license. And yeah, it snowballed after that. I ended up doing the GS Trophy in Wales about 8 months after I got my license. So that involved taking the Bonneville up to Wales and then 2 days of riding around the Welsh hills, doing like a treasure hunt, really. And in between that, you were riding off-road at Waters Arena, so riding their GS 1250s. And if you told me I would have done that when I had my little SR125, I would have said there's no way in hell. But that's also been a huge factor in me loving riding off-road as well. I really enjoyed that. I think I came 16th out of 50, which I didn't expect to do. I was really pleased with. And I just thought, well, if I can ride one of these off-road, what else can I ride off-road? So I then went and rode some of the Vosges with our now good friend Matt Fox from Motor Fox in Bristol. And he was very good at teaching me the techniques to ride a taller bike as a shorter person. And I really loved that bike. I thought it was very forgiving, but it was also really enjoyable to ride. So that's why I ended up buying the Vosges. And yeah, I've just been out on it constantly ever since.
A key goal for us is reducing diagnosis times. I'm sure that won't be a surprise for anybody to hear that we want to achieve diagnosis being reduced to a year or less by 2030. We believe that if everyone had quick access to diagnosis, that would then improve people's access to treatment and could potentially improve all aspects of people's lives. We know that lengthy diagnosis times are having a huge impact on people's physical and mental health, but also their careers, fertility, education. And so diagnosis is a real goal for us as a charity to really drive that down. We also want to improve access to treatments, which stems from diagnosis, but also in terms of reducing gynecology waiting times. Endometriosis services are under huge pressure and they are not given the capacity, the funding, or the resource they need to meet patient demand. And there's real work for the government to do in terms of ensuring the workforce and the NHS is actually equipped to deliver that care for people with endometriosis. So that's another key goal. In terms of education, we want to ensure that every school child knows the signs and symptoms of endometriosis and knows how and when to seek help if what they're experiencing isn't normal. And we also want every workplace to support people with endometriosis as well and to have real open conversations about menstrual health so that employees feel confident and empowered to be able to get the support that they need. In an ideal world, no charity in the UK would need to exist because everybody, no matter what health condition they were facing, would have the access to the care and support that they need through the NHS. Charities are essentially bridging a gap that the government is not filling. So, for instance, with our nurse-led helpline, that is an incredibly needed service. And that in part is because the government and the NHS aren't waking up to the reality of the support that people with endometriosis need. So our services are very much filling a gap that the government are failing to provide. I think in a way the charity will always be needed in terms of peer support. I think peer support is so incredibly valued for people to hear someone else who's going through the same thing as you, I think is so incredibly important. And I think the community aspects of charities should live on beyond the support that the NHS and the government should be providing, because I think that's a heart of charities and also people with lived conditions in being able to speak to someone else about what they're going through. The general public can help in a lot of ways in supporting endometriosis UK. Anyone can campaign for change. We don't want people just with lived experience to be campaigning for those to get better deal with the disease. Please do feel inspired by this podcast or any of the shocking statistics that you've heard and log onto our website and lobby your MP so that everybody with endometriosis accesses the support that they need to support them with their condition. We also rely on fundraisers. So if you're able to fundraise for the charity, that would be incredible. There's lots of ways you can support by going to our website and having a look. Also in the workplace, if your employer isn't signed up to the Endometriosis Friendly Employer Scheme, please do check out our Friendly Employer Scheme and see how your workplace could become endometriosis friendly and better support people in the workplace. You never know what the person next to you at work is dealing with. It could be that they're struggling with symptoms. So please do show your support in that way too.
Endo Riders has been a bit of a passion project of mine and something that I wanted to do for quite a long time, even if it wasn't specifically motorcycling. When I was growing up, I feel like there was a lack of support and there were few places you could go to talk to someone who really knew or understood what it was like to have endometriosis. And then as I got older, the internet was more easily available. That I found the charity Endometriosis UK, and they have a wealth of information on their website. They also have a helpline, which I called a few times when I was struggling with my endo to find out how to get where I needed to go, to how do I get them to listen to me at the doctors, what do I need to do to advocate for myself. And they've been invaluable. They're fantastic. So a few years ago, before I got my motorcycle license, I did a little challenge, a paddleboard challenge for them. So my husband and I paddled 80 kilometres through the Welsh Mon and Breck Canal for the 8 years that it takes to be, on average, diagnosed with endometriosis. From then on, I've wanted to be able to do something more for them to give back. And the last couple of years, especially we're talking to Jade, we've said, what could we do to give back? So Endo Riders was the result of that.
We've been talking about it for quite a while and just wanting to do more for Endometriosis UK, wanting to share on our platforms that for women, they're not alone, whether they've been diagnosed or not. They're not alone. It's a really lonely disease. It it's terrifying at times. And we just wanted somewhere for people to talk, for people to come and do a ride. We didn't know exactly what capacity it would be at first, but we knew we wanted to do something and we wanted to raise money and get awareness at the end of the day.
It's been fantastic to see how many people have responded to it so positively. It was going to just be kind of a little support page kept on Instagram, but then we wanted to do something specifically for it, which is why we are doing the Endo ride in April. So there are a group of us. There's 12 women in total, I think, and then 18 if you include support riders. And we'll be riding the 10 highest mountain passes of Wales for the 1 in 10 women on average that they think have endometriosis in the UK. And yeah, I'm really hoping that it's successful and that it can become something that we do again in the future. Whether that's in Wales again, or we do something around the coast of Devon and Cornwall, or we do a trip to Scotland, or even somewhere like Ireland. But I think knowing there's somewhere you can go if you're struggling is invaluable. Sometimes it is very easy to feel quite isolated when you have endometriosis, especially if you've got it severely enough that's affecting your ability to get out of the house. So if it benefits one other woman and they find that they have the confidence to go and advocate for themselves at the doctors, or they know they're not alone, then my work is done.
Thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and if you really appreciate what we do, please consider supporting us on either Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Links are available on our website, tampodcast.com, where you can also go to our store, that's a shop in English, and buy some branded stuff. Please keep listening and, more importantly, spreading the word. Right, that's it. Just a final word from one of our sponsors, and we'll see you next time. Are you heading out on an adventure? Whether you're tackling the Tet or hitting the green lanes, don't forget to pack the Pits and Bits Towel Off Body and Hair Wash range. It's the ultimate waterless wash. Just pour it on, rub it into a foam and towel it off. That's it. No water, no rinsing, no fuss. It's lightweight, smells amazing, and most importantly, it gets rid of mud, sweat and odours fast. Perfect for when you're off the beaten track. Stay fresh, go further, and do it all sustainably. Grab yours now at pitsandbits.co.uk, and don't forget to use the code TAMP at checkout for a massive 20% off.